Amid the sea of flawless beauty on Dior's 2007 runway, a girl with a blazing blonde pixie cut appeared, not the polished elegance of tradition, but a challenge. Her piercing blue eyes, fierce stride, and half-indifferent, half-provocative expression stopped the room cold. Her name was Laura Hollins, but the world would come to know her as Agyness Deyn. From the industrial north of England, she charged into the heart of high fashion, carrying with her the raw spirit of punk and a refusal to conform. Her arrival was not a breeze, but a gale, tearing through long-standing ideals of what a model should be. And just when the industry was still intoxicated by her presence, she vanished. Why would a fashion icon, standing at the very peak, choose to walk away? The answer lies within the uncompromising journey of a woman who rewrote the rules. Before she was Agyness Deyn, the girl with a blonde pixie cut sharp as a blade of light, she was Laura Hollins, from the industrial north of England. A place of constant rain, winds sweeping over mossy hills, and narrow streets where the bus horn marked the rhythm of the day. Her childhood had no windows opening to the Mediterranean, no couture gowns hanging in a closet. Everything was ordinary to the point of invisibility: a small house, simple meals, an old alarm clock, and a girl who liked to stand in front of the mirror, tilting her head, experimenting with strange expressions as if it were a secret game. Laura was raised in a working-class rhythm where every story of survival began with getting up early. She learned to see the world through the cadence of train stations, shop doors, and the gentle tap of rain on tin roofs. At school, she wasn't the princess admired by everyone. She was lanky, tall, with an unusual bone structure, and eyes that seemed to silently question everything. While other girls grew their hair long, Laura cut hers short, sometimes extremely short, making her look like a punk singer misplaced in an English literature class. That misfit decision planted the seed of something rare, the courage to be different. Her family didn't speak much about fashion. They taught her kindness, the importance of keeping promises, and the discipline to endure stormy days. Those simple lessons became the backbone she carried into the unpredictable world ahead. When people later asked, "Why does she walk with such confidence?" the answer lay in those unseen years, learning to stand tall when mocked, to smile with nothing but determination, to choose herself when everyone else wanted her to blend in. As a teenager, Laura took on small jobs to earn pocket money, working in a shop, serving tables, changing light bulbs. These weren't glamorous tasks, but they taught her the rhythm of labor and self-reliance. Each pound she earned was a ticket to independence, to buy the clothes she wanted, to make the choices she valued. Through this, she began to understand. Style wasn't about labels or price tags. It was a dialogue between you and the life you lived. Laura was quiet but intense. She didn't shout to be heard, but when she cared about something, she pursued it with full force. She pored over borrowed fashion magazines, memorizing the names of photographers as if learning a secret language. Still, she never thought, "I'll be a model." In her hometown, model was a foreign concept, like a city on the other side of the map. Small conflicts began to surface as her individuality grew. Teachers wanted her to tone it down, peers mocked her odd outfits. But Laura refused to bend. She used her body as a sketchbook, skirts cut shorter, collars raised higher, chunky boots giving her a defiant, grounded stride. She sometimes wondered, "Am I fighting the whole world?" Then she'd answer herself, I'm just telling the truth about who I am." The north of England gave Laura a unique accent, part grit, part rebellion, part sincerity. Her memories were steeped in the smell of damp air, the static of indie music from a small radio, the red brick walls, and the dim amber glow of old pubs. Those images later became the texture that photographers adored, beauty stripped of pretense, unpolished, yet magnetic. Her hidden energy was forged in these moments. The more she was told to be like other girls, the more she veered off in her own direction. She realized that if no one offered her a stage, she'd build one herself, even if it was just a corner with a friend's old camera. And in those improvised photos, Laura discovered something miraculous. Her unusual face, her eyes, her hair, none of it was a flaw. It was a visual language the outside world, sooner or later, would have to hear. One day, she would leave the rainy north for cities drenched in lights. But for now, she remained the girl who walked through drizzle with her head high, carrying an unshakable discipline and a quiet belief. Somewhere out there, there's a place for the different ones, and when the chance came, she would take it, without hesitation, without apology. Laura Holland's turning point came when she least expected it, in a small pub in Rossendale, where she was working part-time to make ends meet. She was 18, her hair cropped into an audacious pixie cut that, in her small town, only punk musicians dared to wear. One summer evening, while she was carrying a tray of drinks, a stranger approached her with the gaze of someone who had just spotted a rare gem among stones. He was a young photographer, looking for a new face for a project. At first, Laura laughed it off. "Me? A model? You must be joking," she said as she poured a pint, assuming it was nothing more than a pickup line. But when he handed her a business card and showed a few sample shots, curiosity began to stir. It felt like standing before a door she didn't know existed, uncertain of what lay beyond, yet pulled toward it by something invisible. The test shoot took place in a faded loft in Manchester. No glamorous set, just light streaming through a window and a worn white backdrop. When the camera began clicking, Laura felt herself change. She was no longer the pub waitress, nor the girl from the damp streets of the north, but a new character, fierce, enigmatic, capable of being anything. The photographer kept exclaiming, "Perfect! Hold that look!" Those photos circulated among the photographer's friends and eventually landed in the hands of a scout from a London modeling agency. The message inviting Laura to audition arrived on a Tuesday afternoon while she was washing glasses. Her family was hesitant. Her mother worried, "This industry isn't kind to people who are too different, Laura. They might not understand you." But that doubt only made Laura more determined. The train ride to London was her first long journey away from home. Stepping out at King's Cross felt like entering another world. Wide streets, golden light spilling across faces, footsteps quickened by ambition, and voices speaking in a dozen different accents. The casting took place in a stark white agency office, with a few plastic chairs and a tall mirror. Laura was asked to walk a few steps, turn her head, and look directly into the lens. No music, no crowd, just the hum of the lights and her pounding heartbeat. When the agency director looked over her portfolio and said, "We'd like to sign you," Laura felt a mix of disbelief and exhilaration. Life in London was anything but easy at first. She had to learn how to walk in high heels, how to turn her body to the rhythm of the camera, how to hold a pose for hours without losing expression. She also faced skeptical clients. "She's too different, not feminine enough, not commercial." Each rejection stung, but Laura refused to back down. She started with small jobs, shooting lookbooks for lesser-known brands, modeling for emerging designers. The pay was modest, but each gig was a chance to sharpen her skills and discover her own body language. Laura realized that if she wanted to survive, she had to turn her difference into her personal trademark. Then came the real break. A renowned stylist stumbled upon Laura's image in a portfolio and invited her to walk in a London Fashion Week show. For the first time, she wore haute couture, stepping onto a runway under blinding lights before hundreds of cameras. As the spotlight hit her, Laura, now renamed Agyness Deyn, felt that every rainy day, every rejection, every solitary night practicing her walk had led her here. She was no longer the hesitant girl from the north. She was an emerging icon, ready to challenge every convention the fashion world had held dear. From the moment she stepped onto that London Fashion Week runway, Agyness Deyn seemed to ignite. Fashion magazines took notice almost instantly. Just months later, she appeared on the cover of Vogue UK, her icy blue eyes, short spiky blonde hair, and half-defiant, half-intriguing expression delivering a visual shock. It wasn't just a cover photo. It was a declaration that a new era was dawning, one where perfection no longer belonged to classic symmetry, but to personality and energy. Agyness quickly became the muse of the industry's most powerful houses. Chanel adored her mischievous streak. Dior wanted her sharp-edged allure on their runway. Burberry and Vivienne Westwood were drawn to the unapologetic British punk authenticity she carried like a signature. On the catwalk, Agyness didn't just walk, she performed. At times, she was cold and statuesque. At others, she exploded with the presence of a rock star mid-set. She broke the rules without hesitation. While most models glided in uniform grace, Agyness might pause mid-walk, tilt her head, and throw a glance that sent camera shutters into overdrive. The audience called it untrainable charisma. Photographers said the lens loved her because she never repeated the same expression twice. By 2007, the Fashion Spot and Vogue ranked her among the top 10 it girls in the world. Brands fought to sign her: Giorgio Armani, Anna Sui, Reebok, Doc Martens. Her image in black boots, skinny jeans, and a leather jacket became a street-style symbol. Young women began cutting their hair into pixies, wearing vintage tees, and stacking silver bracelets just to capture a bit of agyness. She had that rare duality, accessible yet untouchable. In interviews, she kept her Lancashire accent, refusing to polish it away for glamour's sake. She laughed about her pub job past, about being rejected for looking too odd, and summed herself up with, "I don't think I'm beautiful in the usual way, but I know I'm interesting." What set her apart in this golden moment was her refusal to become a packaged fashion princess. She still played music with friends, went to indie gigs, and often walked to the studio instead of taking chauffeured cars. Her authenticity made her both a high-fashion darling and a rebellion icon. Between 2008 and 2010, she was unstoppable, opening and closing shows for Jean-Paul Gaultier, Karl Lagerfeld, and Marc Jacobs. Every entrance was a spark. Every exit left a trail of buzz. Her presence on the runway was not just about selling clothes. It was about telling a story. One defining moment came during a Vogue Italia shoot, when a photographer suggested she wear a long wig to look more feminine. Agyness refused. "If you wanted a girl with long hair, you wouldn't have called me." The line became legend, reprinted in countless articles as a manifesto of model self-determination. Her artistic relationships were as defining as her walk. Vivienne Westwood hailed her as the heir to Britain's punk spirit. Karl Lagerfeld described her simply, "Agyness is not a model, she's a character." But even in these peak years, there was an undercurrent, a glimpse into the dark side of fashion. The grueling travel, the expectation to constantly reinvent, the pressure to maintain an effortless authenticity that was anything but effortless. All these would later shape her decisions. Still, at this point in her career, she held the industry in the palm of her hand, and no one imagined she might one day walk away from it all. Every step, every glance from Agyness during these years was like a flare in the night sky, brilliant, impossible to ignore, and destined to leave a lasting mark. She had turned different into a weapon, and non-conformity into the new standard. Agyness Deyn was never the kind of model the fashion industry could mold at will. From the start, she carried an unspoken rule: take me as I am, or not at all. In a world that thrived on pliability, this was a double-edged sword. It earned her both worship and resistance. When brands asked her to tone down the punk edge to suit mainstream tastes, Agyness refused. When a major campaign demanded she dye her hair brown and grow it long to fit the trend, she replied, "If I did that, I wouldn't be me anymore." The decision cost her a contract worth hundreds of thousands of pounds, but it preserved her integrity. She wasn't afraid to speak up on topics most models avoided. In an interview with The Guardian, when asked about body size pressure, Agyness said, "My body belongs to me, not as a bargaining chip." At the height of the size zero obsession, the statement hit like a punch to the system. Her defiance extended beyond her image. She blurred the lines between high fashion and streetwear, pairing Chanel couture dresses with worn-out Converse or tailored suits with faded hoodies. At first, designers frowned. Later, they followed her lead. Backstage, she refused to play the silent mannequin. Instead of sitting quietly in makeup chairs, she cracked jokes, blasted indie tracks, and sometimes coaxed fellow models into dancing before showtime. This energy eased pre-show tension, reminding everyone that fashion, at its heart, was creativity, not military drill. One fellow model recalled, "When Agyness was around, it felt lighter. She reminded us this was art, not boot camp." Naturally, this attitude ruffled feathers. A creative director once told her to dial it down for the sake of the brand's serious image. Agyness just smiled and replied, "If my joy is a problem, then the problem isn't me." The line spread quickly through the industry, cementing her as an icon of resistance. But she wasn't rebellious for rebellion's sake. Every decision came from her belief that models were not coat hangers, but individuals with stories, personalities, and the right to define themselves. She often collaborated with young designers or art projects outside the commercial sphere, choosing spaces where she could experiment freely. Sticking to this philosophy came at a cost. There were times when her calendar thinned out and opportunities slipped away. Yet, when faced with the choice between compromise for money or holding on to her identity, she always chose the latter. The industry saw her as the exception, unpredictable, uncontainable, but this only made the public love her more. They saw more than a face on a magazine cover. They saw a person willing to pay the price for authenticity. In British Vogue, an editor once described her, "She doesn't just wear clothes, she lives in them, folding them into her own world, and that world belongs to Agyness Deyn, not to any brand." In an age when many of her peers maintained safe, carefully managed personas to hold their spots in campaigns, Agyness took the rockier road, guarding her difference like a treasure. It was this refusal to conform that aligned her spirit with the legends, the way 90s supermodels like Kate Moss or Kristen McMenemy once shifted beauty ideals by simply refusing to fit the mold. Her fight against the industry's unwritten rules wasn't just about her own career. It opened doors for others. Young models saw in Agyness a blueprint for survival without surrender. Her career became proof that, in fashion's ever-churning tide, individuality could still hold its ground. At the peak of her fame, Agyness Deyn's sudden fade from the spotlight felt almost surreal. Around 2011, while she was still gracing magazine covers and fronting major campaigns, her runway appearances began to dwindle. Paparazzi spotted her more often on the streets of Los Angeles or New York than at Paris or Milan Fashion Week. Rumors swirled. She was burned out. She was chasing an acting career. Something had happened behind the scenes. In truth, after more than a decade of living in a relentless cycle, shoot, runway, airport, hotel, Agyness felt empty. The pressure to maintain an image that was effortlessly rebellious had become exhausting. In one rare interview, she admitted, "I didn't feel like myself anymore. The industry moves so fast, and if you pause, you get left behind. But I needed to pause." Personal setbacks added weight to her decision. A high-profile romance with a well-known musician ended quietly but left deep marks. A minor ankle injury during training forced her to pull out of key shows, openings that were quickly filled by fresh faces. In 2012, at just 29, Agyness announced her retirement from modeling. "I want to do other things," she said. "I want to feel like I'm starting an adventure again, not just running on a wheel." The fashion world was stunned. For some, it was a loss. For others, a bold refusal to let the industry dictate her timeline. She tried acting, appearing in indie films and television projects, and dabbled in design. That same year, she married actor Giovanni Ribisi, though the marriage lasted less than 3 years. Slowly, her public appearances dwindled. Her Instagram, never a frenzy to begin with, became sparse. Gone were the blinding runway lights and glossy editorials. In their place, snapshots of hikes, beaches, and quiet moments. Some believed she had faded herself out by leaving at the height of her power. Others saw foresight, that she'd stepped away before the dark side of fashion could erode what she loved about it. In a UK talk show years later, when asked if she regretted it, Agyness simply smiled. I lived a chapter fully. Now I'm writing another one." Her near-total absence from pop culture left a lingering void. She didn't return for anniversary shows, surprise runway cameos, or nostalgic interviews. It felt as if she had locked that door forever. Yet, whenever old footage of her runway walks resurfaces online, viewers still murmur, "No one ever did it like her." And inevitably, the question follows, where is she now, and would she ever come back? Agyness Deyn may have left the runway in near silence, but her presence still echoes through fashion's memory. In an industry that quickly forgets, she remains an exception, remembered not just for her looks, but for her spirit. She proved that a supermodel doesn't need to fit every standard to become an icon. From the blonde pixie cut and punk edge to her way of turning difference into a new norm, her image remains unmistakable. Models like Cara Delevingne and Edie Campbell have openly credited her as an inspiration, not only for her style, but for the courage to be unapologetically herself. Her true legacy lies in expanding the definition of beauty on the runway. She showed that fashion is about story and individuality, not just symmetry. And so the question lingers, if Agyness Deyn returned today, would the industry be brave enough to let her redefine it once more?